It is so tight between so many teams in the Premier League this season. It's really exciting to watch. And with the January transfer window opening today, there are opportunities for clubs to get that extra little bit, those extra percentages that will get them to where they want to be at the end of the season. So I'm going to preview on this video in a little bit of a quick fire manner what clubs need going into this transfer window and what they'll hope to get, some of the players that they could pick up as well for the positions they are looking. Let's go straight into it. I'm going to start with Liverpool because they did a great job in the summer. They, pretty much rebuilt their midfield, losing Henderson, Fabinho and, the rest. And then bringing in the likes of Szoboszlai, Endo, McAllister, Gravenberch, players I really, really like. But it still feels that they could do a little bit more in that sixth position in particular. My feeling on Liverpool is they are just a little bit off Arsenal and Man City for me. I know the league table might not always say that, but it feels that way to me. But if they get that six, I say that they can almost jump up to maybe title favourite, especially with the way City and Arsenal have been quite inconsistent this season. Now, when I say get that six, I'm talking that 60, 70 million pound difference maker. A João Palhinha maybe. Sheikh Doucouré has been linked. Could he be that guy? Douglas Luiz. But Palhinha feels like a really good option. He nearly went to Bayern Munich, and I think he's a good option for quite a few clubs in this list that I'm going to go through. But if they get that player, I think he not only protects them defensively really well, but he gives a platform for the attackers to go and play, and he might just knit everything together. Where there feels a bit of a gap between how well Liverpool are defending compared to how well they're attacking, he could be the one that elevates both ends of the pitch simply by being that rock that everyone can play off. The other player I think they could look at is a centre-back / full-back. Now, in a world of Nathan Ake's, Gvardiol's, Ben White, Kivior's, defenders that our centre-backs were asking to do job in wider areas because of controlling transition and things like that. I wonder whether Liverpool have got Trent Alexander-Arnold inverting a lot more this season, might look for that left side centre-back. They don't have a natural left-footed centre-back. Van Dijk, Konate, Matip and Gomez are all right-footed. Gomez is the only one of those four who can actually play in full-back areas. So I wonder whether Inacio, for example, from Sporting, might come in to be that left-footed defender who can start at left-back, shifting to back three when the likes of Trent invert, but also actually just give them good cover at centre-back as well, where they've had quite a few injuries. Of course, Kwanzaa as well has done quite well from the academy, but I just wonder if that's another area they might focus on as well, Liverpool. Okay, let's talk about Manchester City, who I think could genuinely just do with a fullback that can get up and down the pitch. I think that's an area they certainly should look at. Kyle Walker's been getting forward a little bit more this season than he seemed to last season. Vardiol as well down the left is being sort of finding himself in high and wide areas where he's not really a natural. But I think the big thing is, can they get another winger? I think another winger just suddenly lifts and aids the rest of the squad massively. We saw what Doku did coming into the team in the summer, adding a totally different dimension to Man City, which they haven't had for a few years since losing Sterling, Sane and all them. But I also think in the absence of Mahrez, they could really do with a proper right winger who just uses that space really well. Elise from Palace is an example. Pedro Neto, I'm going to mention a few times in this video, I think would be brilliant options for them. And then when you've got the likes of De Bruyne out injured like he has been for the first half of the season, you're not actually talking about a lack of creativity, because Foden, Bernardo, Jack Grealish, they're all able to play in central spaces. Alvarez has played there, and then you've still got Nunes and Kovacic as well. So I think a right winger would add a really good balance to Man City. Now we talk about Arsenal. So 4 positions have really been mentioned, maybe 5. You could talk about central midfield, where they needed perhaps a 6 and an 8, or certainly one or the other. A right wing has been mentioned, a defender has been mentioned, and a striker, especially with all the chances that Arsenal have been missing recently. Now, my feeling on Arsenal is, I actually think you've got to prioritise. It's crazy that you spend the amount of money they have over the last 3-4 windows and still have so many positions to address. It raises questions, but we'll come to them another day. My big thing is, if you're prioritising, what do you need? Well, for a while, I kind of resisted this need for a striker. I felt, well, Trossard offers a false 9. We don't play with an out-and-out striker. But the more I watch Arsenal, the more I think, these chances you're getting, can you get someone who's clinical and is going to put them away? Can you play over teams, not always, trying to play through them? Can you get balls into the box and just hope that you've got a little bit of a trump card to play there? That's why I think the likes of Ivan Toney, Dominic Solanke, who have been linked as well, are really good options just in terms of a different profile. And the thing is, they could be very, very expensive for Arsenal in terms of trying to do those deals, but they are deals that I think Arsenal should be looking at in terms of a striker that offers something else. I don't think you're going to get Osimhen in January, so if you're waiting for that absolute £100 million guaranteed killer, you wait till the summer. But I do think Arsenal should try and do something in January in that area. Now, in terms of the other ones, I actually think the defender is the bigger priority, because Kivior, Gabriel, Saliba, they're pretty much the only ones you can semi-rely on to be fit. Ben White's got injury issues at the moment. He seems to be playing through an injury. Certainly those are the rumours. It looks like he is to me. And then the likes of Tomiyasu, you can't rely on him injury-wise. Partey can cover a right back. You can't rely on him in terms of injuries. And, Timber, when is he back? We don't know. So I think a defender is the other priority. With all the other areas, right wing and central midfield, I think you can still hold hope that those other areas will have emerging talent. Smith Rowe might become that guy. Partey's return might see Rice in the 8, and suddenly Rice, Partey, Odegaard is a pretty brilliant midfield, right? Maybe Reece Nelson can do something on the right. Maybe Vieira becomes that player. Maybe if you sign the strikers, Jesus plays out right. I don't know. But I feel like with those other areas, we're quite simply short at the back, and we quite simply don't have the quality up front, or certainly the depth of quality that we need up front. And so therefore they become more priority positions than the other areas. But I'd love to know people's thoughts on that. Let's go to Tottenham now. I'm not really got much to say on Tottenham other than signed Todibo, who's been linked. I think he'd be a really good player. Romero's had injury problems and suspension issues, so I think Todibo would offer a lot in terms of a profile more similar to Van de Ven, maybe more similar to Romero, but you get what I mean. Basically a player who adds a lot of depth to that area, which they certainly need. And then in terms of other deals they can do, Tottenham, I think just anything that is a good market opportunity that adds to their squad or improves their 11. I don't think they should be thinking, basically we have 2 or 3 positions we definitely want to tackle, maybe 1 or 2 for sure, but otherwise you can pretty much improve in any area, can't you? You can add some depth to Kulusevski, you can get a better striker if that deal is there to do, you can get some depth for Maddison, you can add a little bit in midfield, the fullbacks could use a little bit of help, you could just do any deal, and I think provided they're a sensible player, they work well on Andrew Postecoglou, Tottenham will benefit. Even if it's a 15-20 million pound signing, I think Tottenham will benefit from doing those kind of deals, but certainly a centre-back is a priority for Tottenham. Now we go to Man United. I'm going to talk about Man United and Chelsea sort of back-to-back, starting with United. It feels crazy to say this, but again, a centre-back, maybe a Todibo is an option for them, even though they have numbers, they don't really seem to have a lot of quality in that area right now. The big thing for me is I think they need another winger. And that's crazy to say, right? Because they spent so much money on Jadon Sancho and Anthony, and neither one have become the answer. Garnacho's developed, but he's more of a left winger, though he did well on the right against Aston Villa. Rashford does his best on the left, and you think, okay, well, they need another right winger. And that's why Pedro Neto's another one I think is a really good option for them. He blitzes in behind, he's got great pace, he's just a real trickster, and I think he'd thrive at Manchester United. It's just crazy to say that we're having this conversation once again. Now, some people might mention midfield for Man United, and the thing is, I hear it, right? I hear it. It does feel like they're lacking something in midfield. They signed Casemiro for 70 million last season, Amrabat this summer, and Mainoo's just developed, and it still feels like we're talking about them needing something in midfield when you add Eriksen, Bruno, McTominay seems to play every game. Who else? There's plenty, but I think what I'd say about Manchester United and their midfield is Mason Mount. I forgot about Mason Mount. What I'd say about Man United's midfield is I actually think they can get the balance right. It's just about picking from the personnel correctly rather than actually adding more, if that makes sense. I think they've got the ingredients there to get the balance of midfield, at least to challenge for a place in the Champions League spot. To go for the title, think about that in the summer. Now, I said I'd talk about Chelsea back-to-back with Man United. The big reason for this is because, again, they've spent so much money. Take what I was sort of saying about Man United and what's kind of crazy about them needing more players, and times it by 50 when it comes to Chelsea. It's ridiculous that we've been talking about more signings, but they probably do need them. Poch probably does need them. Now, I think that midfield lacks a little bit of height and presence. I think they got legs, but that's different to height and presence. I think Palhinha, difficult to do because Bayern Munich wanted him. Arsenal have been linked. Liverpool I think are or should be looking at him. It makes me think that actually the likes of Palhinha might be difficult to attain, but if they can do that deal and if they have to pay over the odds a little bit, which we know Chelsea are always willing to do, I think that's a deal they should really explore doing. He adds height and presence into midfield, and he can be a really good complementary player to a Caicedo who's really good on the ball. You could play with 2 6s and a 10 with Palmer in front, or Enzo comes in, or Caicedo, Palhinha, Enzo I don't love, but certainly you could alternate a little bit. Maybe you need a little bit more creativity, you get Enzo. You need a little bit more steel, you go Caicedo. You can play with different partnerships there. You can even play with the three with Enzo, Palhinha and Gallagher. Nice balance from legs up and down the pitch, presence sitting, a little bit of playmaking from Enzo. You can actually come up with a few different combinations. Lavia, I think, in a double pivot 6 with Palhinha would do well. Ugo Chukwu can be the understudy. He seems to have a bit of presence about him in midfield, though I don't know him expertly. I think Palhinha would be a really good signing for Chelsea. I wouldn't worry about anything else. Maybe a goalkeeper. Can they go and make a statement? I think in the summer, depending on where everyone finishes, they should try and make a statement and go get like an Emi Martinez. Villa fans won't love that. I hear it. Why the hell would he leave Villa for Chelsea right now? That's what I kind of say more for the summer. But they need to make a statement signing with a goalkeeper. Maybe an Aaron Ramsdale's, and is someone that they could look at this January if they're willing to spend the money. But I do think that's a problem position for them. Don't know how well Petrovic is doing since coming in. But basically, get that midfield balance, and actually things might look a little bit better for Chelsea. I know people are talking about a striker. Worry about that in the summer, in my opinion. Then you can get the right guy. Who have we got next? Let's talk about Newcastle, who I think their biggest problem. Look, they've had problems in defence, but that's been more injuries. You know, you got Trippier, and then Livramento can come in. You got Burn, and Hall can come in. Then you got Cher, Botman, Lascelles. Burn can play centre-back as well. It feels like they've got enough to get by. If they want to add another, fine. I think the bigger thing is adding to the midfield and adding a little bit of guile and class and quality. It feels like with their gegenpress style Newcastle, where they play the narrow 4-3-3, they want to get stuck into teams, they want to win ball in transition and force you into errors. They chance create through pressing. I feel like they could do with someone who's a little bit more inventive, and someone like Eze from Palace could be a really good player in that sense. Someone who can play in a midfield 3, can play in a front 3, can play in a 10, has a lot of guile, has a lot of energy, has got some presence in the way he gets about in the midfield, and actually could be a really good fit for Newcastle, in which they're not completely changed the way they play, but they just evolved their midfield slightly. I also think Pedro Neto, I've mentioned, is a good option for them too. Almiron, hit and miss, get some real quality in that front 3, and suddenly Neto, Isaac, Gordon, that's a front 3 that you genuinely fear. They have a lot of quality. I'd be interested to see what they do in this window, Newcastle, because I think they're going to start flexing. I think they've actually been weirdly quite humble. I know they signed Isaac, Tonali, Guimaraes in the past, but I think they've been quite humble in the window in terms of, you know, not having that £200-300 million, you know, window that kind of everyone expects them to have to try and, you know, really jump up the table. But I think they will start to do that now, Newcastle, so let's keep an eye on them. A couple more teams I just want to mention. I'm going to go to West Ham, who I think have spent their Declan Rice money brilliantly. But I still think they could do with a striker. Ings and Antonio haven't been that, and Bowen has done well. Like, credit to Bowen. I just think, wouldn't it be nice, I'm not saying Bowen's not a good striker, but wouldn't it be nice to actually just have good options in various midfield positions, rather than feeling like you've got to get your best players on the pitch? Wouldn't it be great to have Bowen and Kudus competing for that right hand side, or therefore Kudus playing on the left with Bowen on the right and Paqueta in the 10, so maybe you could move Ward-Prowse a little bit deeper next to Alvarez, or big games you have Souček in there with Alvarez, maybe Ward-Prowse in the 10, and then you play Bowen, but you just have different options, right? I think West Ham playing European football could do with a few different options, and a player that I'm going to suggest has been linked to Arsenal, and that player is Dominic Solanke. A lot of people feel like it's a big jump for Solanke to Arsenal. Now, West Ham just beat us, so I'm very aware of how arrogant I sound saying this. But I think the jump to West Ham is a little bit more stomachable for him. I think West Ham fans might welcome that deal. But the big thing is, he's a really, really good transitional player for what West Ham do really well under David Moyes and have done for many years, to what they want to do really well, which is being a little bit more on the ball and getting the most out of their technicians. Solanke's good on the ball, he gets in behind, he's good on the air, so he'll be a threat from set pieces. He's been scoring goals for Bournemouth. Listen, you might have to throw 50 million at it, but I think that could be a really good deal for West Ham, and it allows you to move Bowen into more comfortable areas, though I take it he's been doing very well up front. Interesting one. I'd love to know what West Ham fans think of Dominic Solanke as a target, or as a striker as their priority. Last couple of clubs I'm going to mention, Aston Villa. I think the big thing for them is adding a little bit more creativity into this team. As they continue to do so well, they're going to need players that can unpick a lock, especially with Buendia's injury. So I'll be interested to see if they want to add a little bit more. They've got very good industrious midfielders who have quality. Douglas Luiz can produce quality. John McGinn can produce quality. Zaniolo can produce quality. But I'm talking an out-and-out 10, certainly in the absence of Buendia, could play a big part for Villa. But that's pretty much it. I'm not really sure anywhere else. Maybe a little bit of depth up front, but I don't know. Ollie Watkins is doing really well, and they got John Duran. That's why I said John. They've got Duran who can play up front as well. So not really sure. I'd love to know what Villa fans think they need. Generally, the squad is there. They've got good options. It's just about keeping them fit and maybe adding one player that can just give them that something else. Where's Coutinho these days? That's another player I've sort of forgotten about. And Brighton, anyone. Just sign anyone. De Zerbi has had to put up with a lot of his players being taken. Brighton have to deal with a lot of their staff going. Wherever they can add quality, do it, because De Zerbi proved in that 4-2 win against Spurs the other day that he can get this team ticking, he can mix things up, and he can still get Brighton absolutely firing. They're in the Europa League knockouts, they qualified first from their group, they've done a fantastic job. Despite the injuries they've had, go and just give him some support in the window, and Brighton will continue to kick on. Those are my thoughts for what everyone needs in this January transfer window. I'd love to know your thoughts as well. It's a big window, and like I said at the start of the video, get the signings right. Get that right player that just gives you that different dimension, a little bit extra, and it could be an extra 2-3 places up the table you go. That is how tight things are in the Premier League right now. Those signings, those millions being spent, might just be the difference for certain teams in the second half of this season. And I just want to say a really big thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, actually hit the links right here to watch more content like this, including my Football First podcast, which drops every Monday to Friday at 6 AM. And I know it's annoying, I am really sorry to have to ask, but if you want to show support to the channel, hitting the like and subscribe buttons help promote the content much more than you could possibly know. Thanks again.